In the small town of Eldridge, nestled between dark woods and rolling hills, stood an old, decrepit house. The townsfolk whispered tales about the house, describing it as cursed. They said it was haunted by a ghost named Eliza, a young girl who had mysteriously vanished many years ago. Despite the warnings, Sarah Thompson, a 25-year-old writer, decided to rent the house. She was searching for inspiration for her next novel and believed the eerie atmosphere would help her creativity. As she drove up to the house, Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The house was covered in vines, the windows were grimy, and the paint was peeling. Yet there was something oddly charming about it. She parked her car, grabbed her suitcase, and walked up the creaky wooden steps. The front door surprisingly swung open with a loud creak, as if inviting her in. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and cobwebs hung like curtains in the corners. Sarah set her suitcase down and took a deep breath. "This will be perfect," she thought. She could almost hear the whispers of stories waiting to be written in the silence of the house. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah lit a few candles and settled down with her notebook. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows on the walls. She felt a strange sense of calm in the house, as if the shadows were comforting her. But as the night wore on, an unsettling feeling crept in. The wind howled outside, and the old house groaned in response. Sarah tried to ignore the unease and focused on her writing. Just as she began to lose herself in her words, she heard a soft whisper. Startled, Sarah glanced around the room. "Hello?" she called out, her voice shaky. There was no response, just the sound of the wind. She shook her head, convincing herself it was just her imagination playing tricks on her. The next morning, Sarah woke up feeling groggy, but determined to explore the house. She wandered from room to room, discovering remnants of the past, old photographs, dusty books, and faded furniture. In one room, she found a large, ornate mirror. It was beautiful, but cracked, and the frame was covered in intricate carvings. As she wiped the dust off the mirror, she caught a glimpse of something behind her. She turned around quickly, but there was nothing there. Shaking her head, she decided to head outside for some fresh air. The garden was overgrown, but Sarah could see hints of flowers trying to bloom through the weeds. Later that night, Sarah returned to her writing. As she scribbled down her ideas, the whispers returned. "Help me, please." This time, the voice sounded more urgent. Fear gripped her heart, but her curiosity was stronger. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am Eliza," the voice replied, echoing softly in the room. "I need your help." Sarah's heart raced. She had heard of Eliza, the ghost who haunted the house. The stories claimed that she had been a lively girl, full of dreams, who had vanished without a trace. Desperate to uncover the truth, Sarah decided to dig deeper. She spent the following days researching Eliza's life, visiting the townsfolk. Through her research, Sarah learned that Eliza had been a bright girl, loved by everyone in Eldridge. But one fateful night, she had gone missing during a storm, and her body was never found. The townsfolk believed she was still trapped in the house, longing for freedom. Sarah felt a connection with Eliza. She, too, had dreams and aspirations, and she wanted to help the girl find peace. That night, as she sat in front of the mirror, she summoned her courage. "Eliza, I want to help you," she said softly. The room grew cold. and the candles flickered wildly. Suddenly, Eliza's ghost appeared before her, a shimmering figure dressed in a white dress, her long hair flowing like mist. "My eye!" Her eyes were a deep, haunting blue, filled with sadness. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice like a gentle breeze. "I am trapped in this place, and I need your help to find my way home." Determined to help Eliza, Sarah began to investigate the house for clues. She rummaged through old boxes, looking for anything that might lead her to the truth. One night, as she was searching in the attic, she stumbled upon a dusty diary belonging to Eliza. As she opened the diary, she discovered Eliza's dreams, fears, and the events leading up to her disappearance. The last entry was dated the night she vanished. Eliza had written about a secret meeting with a boy named Thomas in the woods. They had planned to run away together, but the storm had come unexpectedly. Suddenly, Sarah felt a presence behind her. It was Eliza, her ghostly figure shimmering in the dim light. "You found it," she said, her voice filled with hope. "I need to go to the woods. That's where it all began." Sarah nodded, feeling a sense of urgency. "Let's go," she said. They made their way through the darkened house, with Eliza guiding Sarah to the back door that led into the woods. The woods were thick and dark, branches reaching out like skeletal hands. As they walked deeper into the forest, the air grew colder, and a thick fog began to roll in. "This is where I met Thomas," Eliza whispered, her voice echoing in the silence. They finally reached a small clearing where the trees parted to reveal a moonlit pond. The water shimmered like glass, and Sarah felt an eerie calm wash over her. "This is where I waited for him," Eliza said, her voice trembling, "but he never came." Suddenly the wind picked up, and Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "What happened to him?" she asked, her heart racing. Eliza's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know. I waited for hours, but he never showed up. And then the storm came." Sarah looked around the clearing, searching for any sign of Thomas. "Maybe there's something here that can help us," she said. They searched the area, and just as Sarah was about to give up, she noticed something glimmering in the mud. It was a locket, half buried beneath the leaves. She picked it up, and as she opened it, she saw a picture of a young man, Thomas. "This must be his," she said, showing it to Eliza. The ghost's expression shifted from sadness to hope. As they stood by the pond, Sarah felt a strange connection between the locket and Eliza's spirit. "We need to find out what happened to him," she said. "Maybe he's still out there." Eliza nodded, her ghostly form flickering in the moonlight. "Please, help me find him. I can't rest until I know the truth." With newfound determination, Sarah returned to the town, seeking out anyone who might have known Tomas. She spent days talking to the elderly residents, gathering stories about Tomas and Eliza's relationship. She learned that Thomas had been a kind-hearted boy, but when Eliza disappeared, he was never the same. The townsfolk said he had left Eldridge, heartbroken and full of guilt. One evening, as Sarah sat in the old house, she felt Eliza's presence growing stronger. "What if we could find Thomas?" she suggested. "Maybe he can help you find peace." Eliza's eyes sparkled with hope. "Do you think he would come back?" "I believe so," Sarah replied. "Let's try to find him." With Eliza's guidance, Sarah scoured the town for any clues about Thomas's whereabouts. She discovered that he had moved to a nearby city. Without hesitation, Sarah packed her bags and set out on a journey to find him. After several hours of driving, she arrived at a small apartment complex where Thomas was rumored to live. Her heart raced as she climbed the stairs to his door. She knocked, and a moment later, a tall man with weary eyes answered. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice low. "Are you Thomas?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. He nodded slowly. "Yes, that's me." "My name is Sarah. I'm here because of Eliza," she said, her heart pounding. "She's been haunting the house in Eldridge, and she needs your help." Thomas's expression shifted from confusion to shock. "Eliza? But she vanished. I thought I'd lost her forever." With tears in her eyes, Sarah explained everything to Thomas. The diary, the locket, and Eliza's longing for closure. As she spoke, Thomas's eyes filled with regret. "I should have gone to her that night," he said, his voice breaking. "I was too scared of my parents finding out." "Will you come back with me?" Sarah asked, hope blooming in her chest. "Eliza needs you to find peace." Thomas hesitated, but then nodded, determination shining in his eyes. "Yes, I'll come." They drove back to Eldridge, the weight of the past heavy in the air. When they arrived at the old house, Eliza's spirit appeared, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Thomas?" she whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. Thomas stepped forward, tears streaming down his face. "Eliza, I'm so sorry. I should have been there for you." Eliza floated closer, and for a moment they stood together, the pain of the past filling the air around them. "I waited for you," she said softly. "I thought you'd come." As the moon rose high in the sky, a warm light surrounded Eliza. The shadows of the house seemed to dance, and the air grew lighter. "I can finally let go," Eliza whispered, her voice filled with peace. "Thank you, Sarah." With that, Eliza reached out to Thomas, and their hands intertwined. In that moment, the room filled with a soft glow, and a warm breeze swept through the house. Sarah watched in awe as Eliza's spirit began to dissolve into a cascade of shimmering light. "Goodbye, Thomas," Eliza said softly, her voice fading into the air. "Thank you for finding me." As the last traces of her spirit vanished, a sense of calm washed over the room. Thomas stood there, tears in his eyes, feeling the weight of years of guilt lift from his shoulders. In the days that followed, Thomas stayed in Eldridge, reconnecting with the town and its people. He found solace in sharing stories about Eliza and the love they had shared. Sarah continued to write, inspired by the events that had transpired. The old house, once filled with shadows and whispers, became a place of healing and memory. Sarah transformed it into a cozy writing retreat, where she invited other writers to come and find inspiration. The townsfolk embraced Thomas, and together they combined their energies in some kind of brilliance that honored Eliza's memory. As Sarah sat in front of the mirror, pen in hand, she felt a sense of peace. The whispers had faded, but their stories would live on in the pages of her book. She smiled, knowing that Eliza had finally found her way home. Years later, as Sarah published her novel, she dedicated it to Eliza, a young girl whose spirit had touched the lives of those around her. The book became a local favorite, and the story of Eliza and Thomas was passed down through generations. And though the old house remained, It was no longer feared. Instead, it stood as a testament to love, loss, and the power of connection. The whispers had become echoes of the past, reminding everyone that sometimes the shadows could lead to the light.